Jeff here. Welcome back. I have been away for a little bit over a month now. I am sorry I haven't put out a new video. I have been recovering from surgery. It hasn't been too big of a surgery, but it's about a 2 month recovery time, so that is why I've been away. And unfortunately, as you will see soon, things have gone absolutely crazy in the garden. I am just starting to do damage control now that I'm a little bit better. I'm a little bit more mobile. So that's been happening, but yeah, things are pretty messy. Things are a little gross out there. But today I am here to talk to you about what is in front of me, and that is summer squash, or zucchini as most of us know it by, or patty pan squash. That's the other one that I have here. These are very easy vegetables to grow. It's something that I like to grow every year. It's basically bomb proof or black thumb proof. If you don't consider yourself somebody who has a green thumb and has a hard time growing vegetables, I highly recommend that you try summer squash or zucchini because generally you are guaranteed to at least get a few good fruits off of them. And fun fact about zucchini and summer squash, its Latin name is Cucurbita pepo, and pepo refers to the type of fruit that it is. It is a true berry. So these are actually true berries. So as I said, they're really easy to grow. Most people can grow them successfully, and they grow well in lots of different conditions. I'm in zone 8B in the coastal south area of British Columbia, Canada, and I've never had a problem growing them here. They grow in a few different forms. You'll commonly see them as the green zucchini that most people are familiar with. They also come in yellow, and you can also get different forms of them like patty pan squash, which are really good. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today, just kind of how the general ins and outs of how to grow them, the space requirements, the nutrition requirements, and how you shouldn't go crazy with them. I'll touch on that in a sec. So there's a few different forms of them, like I said. While I have them out in front of me right now, I'll go into a little bit about the fruit themselves. They're a very large grower if you forget about them. So generally most people like to have them when they're about this size, which is the size that you'll find them in the grocery store. That's going to be when they're at their best flavor-wise and edibility-wise, because when they get to this size, they are edible, but they get really seedy and more spongy in the middle, so there's going to be less of the fruit that you can actually use. That goes the same for the green zucchinis, the yellow zucchinis, and the patty pan squash. So you see how these ones compare in size. This is the stage that you want to pick at for the zucchini. This size is fine, but you're going to have a little bit less that you can cook and utilize with. With the patty pans, again, this size is a little bit too big for what you want it. It's kind of funny, they kind of look like UFOs. This is about the size comparison. This is at the size that you'd want to pick the patty pan squash at compared to the other ones. So yeah, these are super easy to grow. In a sec, I'm going to show you exactly where I have them in the garden. And like I said before, it's a little bit gross out there right now. Things have gotten a little bit out of control, but it's just kind of a testament to how easy and how bomb-proof I'd like to say zucchini and summer squash are, because even though I haven't been taking care of the garden other than watering, they have grown absolutely fine. And as you can see, they have produced for me a lot of fruit that I can't even get through myself. So I'm going to be giving these away to family and friends and anybody who wants them, because they freeze good for baking and for things, throwing them in for things like soup, but I can't even, with the amount that's here and with the amount that's going to be coming in the next little bit, I'm not going to be able to go through all of it myself or fit it in my freezer. So that's another thing that you want to realize about summer squash and zucchini is just plant one or two, because you will get a lot of them. And unless you're growing for other people, generally most households, you just need one or two plants, or otherwise you are going to be dealing with far too much squash than you are able to get through. So yeah, in a sec, we're gonna pop over to the garden and I'll show you them and how they're growing right now. So this is the garden right now. As I explained, since I have not been physically able to and I haven't been mobile, I have not really been taking care of this other than the watering, and things have gone absolutely crazy. But luckily things are still growing and going pretty good, so even though it looks really bad right now, I'm actually pretty happy with how everything has produced. So I'll show you the squash plants here and try not to trip over anything or crush anything. I use grass and clover pathways, which is why everything looks so wild right now. now. So yeah, it needs a chop for sure. But this is the zucchini row here, or the summer squash row, because they're not all zucchini. And even though things have gotten crazy, they have just been growing completely fine. And I'll show you a couple little pest tips or disease tips, and I'll show you kind of, yeah, just how they grow here. So this is one of the plants. I can't remember if this, I think this is a yellow zucchini. I picked all the fruit off, so now I can't tell, unfortunately. And they've just started getting, which is one of the most common diseases you'll see on these plants, is powdery mildew. Actually, I've got a little bit of a better example over here. So see this white powdery stuff here? This is one of the most common problems that you'll see these plants get. And in my experience, it's really the only problem that I've ever had growing zucchini and summer squash. So this is powdery mildew. And basically what happens is when things get wet, it creates an environment for the spores to propagate and kind of create this stuff here, and then when it dries and then the wind blows, the spores blow onto other plants. So it kind of spreads really quickly once it starts, but it can be controlled. So at this stage, what you can do is you can chop off the leaves, which I'll do later, chop off the ones that it's just starting to grow on and is really kind of starting to take over. If you have ones that are just having a few little spots like this one down here, what some people do, I haven't had the greatest luck with it, is creating a spray of baking soda and water and spraying down the leaves, and that can be used as a control method, and that can help it stop spreading from the leaves that just have a little bit starting here. But if you're getting to the point where, you know, you've got more than half the leaf taken over by it, or really, even this one I would cut off, just cut off the leaf. And another thing you can do is, even though I am using overhead watering right now, because that's the best option I have with kind of the condition that I've been in, the best option is to water from the bottom. So using something like drip tape or something like that, because stopping water from spraying overhead and landing on the tops of the leaves where the mildew is, that's going to help stop the spread. So watering from the bottom is one of the best things you can do, as well as going in and pruning the more affected leaves, pruning the older leaves, allowing for more airflow. That's going to help the stop of powdery mildew. And I'll just show you something that some people get confused by when they're growing zucchini and summer squash, is some varieties have a natural, it's hard to see right now, but a silvery kind of white pattern or variegation, and that is totally normal. I'll try to show you on a few other leaves down here. It's a bit washed out now. It's more prominent in the beginning of the season, but that is not powdery mildew. That is just a normal leaf coloration, but a lot of people when they start growing this get that confused. So this is what a normal leaf pattern looks like. This is what powdery mildew looks like. So we'll go back to this, and you can see this is more even. It's more of a regular pattern over everything. This is much more blotchy and uneven. It doesn't really have any rhyme or reason or pattern to it. So, and it's much more fuzzy when you go in. You can actually see the fuzz on it. So that's how to differentiate between the two. A lot of people freak out when they first see it because it's a lot more prominent on younger plants, and they're like, oh my god, I've got powdery mildew. But no, don't worry about it. That is normal. This is not. This is the one that needs to be controlled. So just going through the patch, and yeah, most of the fruit, you can see a little zucchini down there, most of the fruit I picked off the other day, and there's a couple fruits that just didn't get pollinated well enough, and they didn't grow. Oh, I'll show you a flower down here. So if we look down here, that is a male flower. Now, these plants have both male and female flowers on them. And the female flowers is what produces the fruit. And is that one down there? No, that's another male flower down there. The female flower is what produces the fruit, and the male flower is what pollinates it. So you need to have both. There's another male flower there. You need to have both to get good pollination and good fruit. Now, a lot of the times the male flowers will pop up first, followed by the female flowers. And once you have both growing on the plant, then they'll pollinate each other, and then you'll be able to get a good fruit. And like I said, generally, you can see I've got about 7 or 8 plants here. I was planning on growing for other people this year, and because of my surgery, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to do too much of that, but I'm definitely going to be able to give a lot of zucchini away. Like I said before, don't go crazy with it. They produce a lot of fruit. So if you're just growing for yourself or your house, I would start with 1 or 2, and that'll be enough to last you essentially the entire summer. So we'll go back to the table, and I will give you a little bit more info on how to grow these. Alright, so you've just seen how crazy and out of control everything got in the garden, but the zucchini and the squash were still growing good. They still produce lots of fruit. You saw the powdery mildew, and now I'll just touch on a few more things to keep in mind when you're growing them. Spacing requirements, as I told you, if you're only growing for yourself in your house, just grow like 1 or 2, don't go crazy with it. But they get very large comparative to other plants you can have in your garden. So spacing wise, I space them at least 1.5 feet apart, or try to, if space allows. You can also do them in containers, and you can also trellis them as well if you're a little bit tight on space. But if you're growing them in containers, just make sure the container is going to be large enough to support the plant, and you're going to be having to water it a little more often than if you were growing it in the ground. Watering wise, like I said, watering from the bottom is the best option. When they're younger, you can water them from the top and not have as much of a risk of powdery mildew, because the risk definitely grows as the plants get older. But yeah, watering from the bottom with something like drip tape or another drip system, that's going to be your best bet for watering. And I like to do a good water early in the morning before it gets too hot. Let everything soak in. I generally run my water for about 20 to 30 minutes in the morning. Like I said, get a nice good deep soak, and that generally takes care of them for the whole day. And I'll do that once a day in the middle of the summer right now when we're at the end of July, the beginning of August, because things are heating up, but that's generally a good enough amount to support them through the whole day. And then I do that once a day. Pest and disease wise, like I said, powdery mildew for me has really been the only issue that I've run into. The plants themselves are covered in very fine hairs, or they're almost like tiny thorns. So in my experience, I haven't had too many problems with insect pests. And for fertilization, they do pretty well with not a whole lot of fertilization. They produce a lot of fruit, but compared to some of the other plants I've grown, I don't consider them to be too heavy of a feeder. So basically what I do for nutrition is once at the beginning of the season, I'll do an application of compost, and I will apply a general purpose granular fertilizer. It's organic. Its numbers are 439. And one application at the beginning of the season is pretty much enough to last it until its entire lifespan, and I don't have to refertilize for that crop. I'll just fertilize it once, and then that's good. So they're very, very easy to grow. If you have not had success with growing vegetables and you like zucchini, I highly recommend giving it a try, because it's almost impossible to fail. You'll at least get 1 or 2. So that is basically it. It's pretty much all I have to say about zucchini and summer squash. They are delicious, they are easy to grow. It is definitely easy to grow for your friends and family and give away if that's what you like to do. But I highly recommend everybody give it a try, and I hope you all have an amazing day. And I forgot to mention a second ago, if you could please go and like, comment, and subscribe to these videos and our channel. It would help us out a huge amount. You would be awesome. And like I said a second ago, have an amazing day.